So, Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon, distinguished guests, esteemed colleague, ladies and gentlemen. Please welcome to the first whole university academic discourse of 2023, organized by Center of Academic Development. So, now allow me to introduce the speaker of today. Professor Dr. Joanna Madalinska Michalak is a full professor of social sciences in education and education research at the Faculty of Education, University of Warsaw, Poland. In 2020, she was awarded the honorary title of Distinguished Professor at the University of Warsaw. She is an honorary professor at Aarhus University, Denmark, and a visiting professor at Al-Farabi Kazakh National University, Kazakhstan. She is the head of the chair of didactic and teacher education, a member of the board of scientific discipline, University of Warsaw, and a member of the university board of the Pedagogical University in Krakow, Poland. Professor Madalinska Michalak has long-standing research and consultancy experience in the field of teacher education, teachers' role and continuing professional development, teachers' professionalism and ethics, and educational leadership. Her research work focuses on successful school leadership in challenging circumstances, school development with a focus on the children and teacher development, teacher education, teachers and school principals, learning and development, teacher competences, and research ethics. She is currently Vice President of International Association of Educators, a member of the Board of Director of International Council of Education for Training, for Teaching, and a member of Council Board of European Educational Research Association. She is also a representative of the Polish Ministry of Education and Science in European Network on Teacher Education Policy. She was a vice president of World Education Research Association from 2018 to 2022, a president of Polish Educational Research Association, chair of Teacher Education Policy in Europe Scientific Network for 4 years, and a member of the executive body of the Board of Scientific Association at the Polish Academy of Science. Professor Madalinska Michalak also has received 2022 Institute the Republika Award, honoring her outstanding achievement in the social science and international activities. In the same year, she was also awarded the Medal of the Polish Educational Research Association in recognition of her special merits for the development of educational research and the popularization of their achievement in Poland and abroad. Professor Madalinska, on behalf of University Pendidikan Sultan Idris or Sultan Idris Education University, we are honored to welcome you here today with us, despite you not feeling really well, and it's winter over there and it's 7:38 a.m. in the morning. Now, without further ado, please welcome Prof. Joanna with her talk, Rethinking Teacher Education in Challenging Times. Please welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Johannes. I hope that you can hear me well. This time is good for me because I'm the, how we could say, early bird. So for me, it's good to wake up and start very early. So ladies and gentlemen, esteemed faculty members, respected guests, good afternoon in Malaysia. It's truly a pleasure to me to be here with you and to have this opportunity to engage, I hope, in our meaningful discussion on teacher education. And before I will start my lecture today, I would like to take a moment to express my sincere gratitude to Dr. Johannes and Dr. Mokhzani from Department of Chemistry, Faculty of Science and Mathematics at University Pendidikan Sultan Idris for the opportunity to be a part of this academic community. It's truly an honor to be here with you. And I really appreciate your support, and I really would like to say, I would like to apologize for my, that I was not able to deliver this lecture before the Christmas time. And today, this lecture will be connected with teacher education. I will try to share my presentation. You will tell me if you can see or not. Let's just have a look. Okay. So what is the title of this presentation? It's about the rethinking teacher education in challenging times. I have a very long title of the presentation, so I try to shorten this title on the slides, but as you know from the whole title, I would like to look at some tensions and some future direction for teacher education. And my talk is based on my latest research on teacher education. During this lecture, I will try to attract the attention to the research that has been done by me, by my colleagues on teacher education. But regarding the title of this lecture, I think that we have the connection that from the title we should look into the future. We should think about the teacher education. And from my point of view, looking into the future speaks to the necessity of long-term thinking when we try to think about the education, about the educational goals, about the conditions in which education is offered to our children and to the future teacher educators. So looking into the future speaks to the necessity of long-term thinking in order to best serve students and foster the development of various aspects of individual and societal life. So this let me say, approach that we don't only focus on finding the solution for today, how to change the education, how to improve the education for the better education. But first of all, we have the strategy for looking into the future. I think it's one of the most needed approach nowadays because we live in times of different crisis, times of insecurity. So this prospective way of thinking is very important. And also at the beginning, I would like to point out this assumption that in many countries, we can observe that education, including teacher education, it is one of the most important assets and should be treated as a priority. And also we accept that expenditures, finance connected with the education is not treated as a consumption in economic sense, but an investment into the future of individual and communities. In our countries, it was like 2 months ago, we have a new government, and the previous government, it's such a pity, let me say, didn't support enough our teachers. And in Poland, we have the situation that never happened, that we observed the shortage of teachers. The new government, one of the first priority for the government is education. Therefore, we are so happy about this. And also to increase teachers' salaries, because they said that, as I mentioned here, that education, all the expenses that we put into the education, it is not consumption, but it is investment into our future. And about this, I developed this assumption in my latest book. Unfortunately, it is only in Polish, the book. It is called Pedagogy. It means teacher education, law and ethical fundamentals of teacher education. And I would like to develop my way of thinking, my approach to teacher education, like the introduction to our lecture. And what we can say that education, for sure, it is one of the most crucial responsibilities of the state. And education involves both financial and organizational efforts. And in this context, the question arises about how this task is implemented in practice and what factors have influence on education. And one of the most interesting questions is that to what extent is education in schools aligned with policies and actions that aim to ensure it reaches the highest standards. And During this lecture, I will raise the question about the quality of teaching, quality of teacher education, because from my point of view, when we think about the highest standards of teacher of education at the school, we must look at the quality of teachers that we have and what conditions we offer to the prospective teachers. Therefore, the quality of teacher education is like the priority nowadays. And what I found in my research, in this collective efforts that we try to look at the quality in teaching and teacher education, and also in the newest book, which was introduced by, edited by Professor Ian Mentor, you know, probably very well, Professor Ian Mentor, in his Palgrave Handbook of Teacher Education Research, and in this book, Quality in Teaching and Teacher Education, where we focus on this specific aspect of teachers and teacher education, which is quality, we can find that there is one main assumption, what we see, the key role of teachers. So no matter what kind of the, let me say, research we would like to conduct on teachers and teacher education, we see that teachers are putting into the center of our considerations, and we recognize teachers that they play a fundamental role in educational process to which students are subject. And it, let me say, can seem to be obvious assumption, but as far as we look at education and the research, we can notice that sometimes we focus on curricula, on the organization of the school, on school planning, all these things around. And sometimes we forget about the role of teachers. And as I said, for these two new publications, teachers, they're put into the center of consideration, and we recognize the key role of teachers. So I really recommend you these two publications. What is interesting, the book by Ian Mentor, it is online, it is open access to this book. Unfortunately, Brill doesn't allow us to have the open access, so maybe next time. And in this lecture, I would like to pay your attention to these three main points. So I will look at the different tensions in teacher education, and these tensions are called like the challenges. Then I would like to look at how we can navigate these challenges, and finally, in the last part of my lecture, I will look at how we can design, let me say, the new horizons for teacher education. And as far as the issue of the challenges in teacher education are concerned, I think it's very important to discuss the context in which teacher education is held, because it's rather not proper approach to research teacher education when we look only on teacher education without the context. You know that the historical professors of comparative education, they said, like Sadler, for example, they said that it's impossible to do research on education without thinking about the context of education, because education never takes part in the empty sphere. So what we can say about the times in which we live, for sure, now we can say that we are living in exceptional times which challenge our educational system, and especially teacher education, and we seek to meet the demands of this rapidly changing world. Each of us went through the time of COVID, and we noticed how our learning were speed up, how we had to adjust to completely new conditions of education, and at that time we noticed this speed of changing work. And nowadays we see even more let me say, dramatic situation in the world, because in different parts of the world we see a lot of riots, conflicts, we see people migrations, the issue of climate change, digitalization, the issue of artificial intelligence. Only name these few issues, we can say that these press researchers and teacher educators to rethink the future of teacher education. We are not able now to design teacher education, as I mentioned, according to the times in which we live, but we have to think about the future and take into account all these challenges. So these global concerns call for a stronger focus on issues of equity, diversity, issue of inclusion in education and in teacher education. And we can say describing the context in which teacher education is held now, that we can say that the COVID-19 pandemic is still very much prevalent, and its long-term effects are yet to be known. Still, we don't know this effect. On Monday, I had my online lecture with the students from the Faculty of Linguistics, and we were discussing the issue of digitalization, the issue of COVID time, and how this COVID time impact on them. And in a small group, I noticed different students' experiences. Some of them, they were very happy about this online teaching. They said that it was a good time for them for the self-development. The others, really, it was the traumatic times, because they were not able to have any real relationship contact that was needed for them. And these long-term effects, I think, it will be one of the issues that researchers they will look at. And we see that the COVID-19 pandemic times exacerbated exclusion and inequalities in education, and has revealed the fragility of education system. You remember the time when we have to switch on to this online teaching, the issue of inequality of education become even more stronger, because suddenly we notice that we can offer online education, but without the access to internet, without the specific devices, we are not able to maintain the education. UNESCO did a lot of job to work on minimizing these inequalities of education. So the time of COVID led us to the question and revisit ways of teaching and learning, and why the development of digital competences is now seen as a key component of teacher education. From my point of view, there is a need to develop more flexible and innovative approaches to teaching and learning in post-pandemic age. So digital competences, it is one of the aspects, the component of teacher education, but I think that we need much more in teacher education. And the situation is also, now the situation is more complex, because what we notice in different countries, across Europe at least, but not only, we notice the shortage of teachers. And in the paper which was written by Maria Flores and Cheryl Craig, titled Reimagine Teacher Education in Light of the Teacher Shortage and the Aftershock of COVID-19, Adjusting to a Rapidly Shifting World. From this paper, we can learn about the shock of the COVID time, but we can see how much the issue of teacher shortage now is important, and it needs to be taken very seriously by politicians if we would like to look into the future, as I mentioned at the beginning, and think about the quality teachers within our system of education. So Of course, teacher shortage, the situation that teachers, they leave the profession, or some of them, they even don't want to enter the profession, even though they have the qualifications to do it. It's not a new phenomena, but especially nowadays, it shows the lack of government investment in teacher education over the last 2 decades. And I mentioned about the situation in Poland, that now we are so happy that the new government put education in the center of its considerations, but I wish we could have this in different countries and in the future as well. So policy makers, they attempt to solve the problems of teacher shortage, as you know, through emergencies measures. They try to design how to fill teacher vacancies in schools. But the question is not about the emergency measure. The question is about the strategy for education, for teacher education, how we think about the teachers as a teaching profession, what kind of the common strategies we would like to design in order to deal with the lack of teachers. So this is main issue that I would like to pay attention, and to make this picture of the, let me say, conditions of teacher education, of course, in a very short way. You know that last year this PISA 2022 report was published, and what we learned from this report, especially from volume 1, titled The State of Learning and Equity in Education, we noticed that the assessment results revealed unprecedented drop in performance across the OECD countries. And the report states that while the mean performance in science remains stable, which is good for you, the OECD average dropped by almost 15 points in mathematics and about 10 score points in reading compared to PISA 2018. So this is one of the, let me say, these post-COVID results that we see that children's achievements are lower than they should be. And in this report also we find that the attention was paid to teachers, to the teacher support, and it is shown in the report that teacher support is particularly key in times of disruption, the times that we have now, including provision of extra pedagogical and motivational support to students. So teacher education continues to play a key role in transforming education and in providing students with adequate opportunities to learn and develop in such complex and demanding times. I'm so happy that finally we published a special issue on teacher education. This issue is connected directly with the European journal Education. As you know, it is very well recognized journal. And this special issue, Professor Lynn Goodwin and Professor Maria Flores, we prepared the paper. It was the final paper. We tried to see what happened within the special issue. And the paper we titled Rethinking Teacher Education in 4 Challenging Times, Reconciling Enduring Tensions, Emerging New Possibilities. And my lecture today is mainly based on our paper. And in our paper, we explore these enduring dilemmas, tensions in teacher education. And some of these tensions we called that, are very well known, like the issue between teachers, which is teacher which is perceived as a technician, or teacher as a professional. And also we pay attention to this issue of teacher shortages, but through the angle of quantity and quality. We discuss also the issue of teacher professionalism as a mindset which values capacity for change, adaptability, and continuous improvement. And such a view, from our point of view, is crucial to respond to the challenges which we identified in our paper, and I mentioned about them. And what I can say that with Professor Goodwin and Maria Flores, we said that nowadays we can say that teacher education experiences external system shock. It is the system shock. It's not only the shock because of, let me say, one situation that happened. And teacher education faces challenges that are global in nature and therefore mutually concerning to educators worldwide. And I'm so happy, as I mentioned in the beginning, that we can focus together as academics on this issue of teacher education. And no matter where we live, if you live in Malaysia, let me say in Europe, in the middle of Europe, the borders, they don't matter. What is important, it is our concern on teacher education. And some of the challenges, such as COVID-19 pandemic and the subsequent leap to digitalize everything, especially instruction and schooling, been unprecedented and have drastically transformed the way we live, learn, and work, as I mentioned previously. Others are emerging, and we see also, I mentioned about this, mountaineering teachers, shortages, and this is one clear example, and also the issue of aging teaching force. We see that teachers, they leave their classrooms, and the teacher preparation programs, especially in Europe, we see that these programs are not able to, to fill the need of teachers that should go to the schools. And geopolitical conflicts, they also forced millions of families on the move. Therefore, the issue of migration is so important. And these people, they were displaced from their homes and the way of life. Now we can observe the war in Israel, the war between Israel and Palestinian, and we see how Palestinian peoples, they try to find a place for their lives. And for sure, when we think about the teacher education, the issue of crisis arise, and the issue of how we can reimagine and remake teacher education and other issues. And what we can say, we can notice that usually crises for people, and there are things that are not needed. And we perceive crises in our life usually very negatively. However, from the other point of view, we can say that at the same time, any crisis present opportunities. And crisis can be the impetus to move quickly, to do something differently, sometimes to let go of the tyranny of the dead ideas in teaching and learning. Therefore, the crisis of pandemia evoke us to think about how to reimagine teacher education. Usually at the beginning of school year, I have the workshop for the future school principals, and I remember our workshops this year and the previous year when they asked me how we can see teacher education in the future, what pandemia gave us to reimagine teacher education and school education. And in this special issue, which was edited by Professor Conor Galvin and me, we offered different stories of revision and rethinking teacher education and teacher educators. And as I mentioned, we use the concept of crisis as a concept that can help us to think differently about the teacher education. And As you know, the course, which I put also in my title of the presentation of this lecture, the course for reimagining and remaking teacher education, as we know, they are not new. For example, Maria Tatou, in her paper Professionalism in Teaching and the Role of Teacher Education, the paper that was also published by this European Journal of Teacher Education, she showed that these courses are unfortunately too often dominated in teacher education by teacher education policy and reforms, and it's hard to find the, let me say, the new vision for teacher education, because usually makers they try to adapt to the times that we have at present. And regarding my own experiences in 2021, together with my colleagues from the Faculty of Education, I was very proud and happy that I was able to organize the ATE, it is Association for Teachers and Teacher Education conference. And the title of this conference was Reimagining and Remarking Teacher Education, Identity, Professionalism and Creativity in a Transformed World. And this special issue that I mentioned about is to some extent based on the papers that were presented at our conference at the Faculty of Education, University of Warsaw 2021. Of course, our colleagues, they updated their research. And in our conference, I think we formalized three important themes that each of these themes might work as a very important issue for research, especially for doctoral students. So one of the themes was connected to the professional values, the time when we try to think about the teacher education, how to reimagine or how to remake teacher education. We said that values are very important because sometimes we can develop different techniques and the methods of teachings, but the issue, what are the fundamentals for teacher education is missing. So another issue was connected with the professional teachers and professional teacher educators, how to understand today and build tomorrow. Because, as you know, we have a lot of discussion on teacher professional development, and less discussion we have and less opportunities for teacher educators. The quality of the school education, as we know, is based on the quality of teachers, but the quality of teachers is directly connected with the quality of us as teacher educators. The second theme of our conference was around development of teacher competences for inclusion, social justice in a changing world. And the third theme was about addressing current challenges in pre-service and in career teacher education, because we have the assumption that teacher education should be perceived holistically. It means that we see the connection between the pre-service teacher education, induction, and teacher professional development. Yes, and the whole conference addressed these two questions: how can we rethink, reimagine, reframe teacher education given the contemporary challenges of the economy, education, society, and increasingly the planet? The second question was, what are the optimal means in terms of teacher education programs, curricula, learning experiences, and context through which is reimagining of teacher education can and ought to take place? So there are two questions that were important for us, and they are important for this special issue that I mentioned about. In this special issue, as I said, the invited authors, they focus on these issue of reimagining and remaking teacher education. And among the authors, we have such prestigious colleagues like Vasilios Simonides, who prepared with Maria Impedovo the paper about the interaction. He showed us how much the issue of virtual exchanges is important, but how much interaction and the real relationship is in fact important for the education if you would like to have the quality education. Professor Conor Galvin, with the colleagues, he proposed us different case studies of teacher education. And for example, he showed that in Germany, teacher educators, they let to go of binary thinking, and they try to enable traditional and alternative teacher preparation programs, that these programs, they can coexist to address a pressing and shared problem of teacher shortages in Germany, even though the teacher's salary is one of the highest in Europe, and they offer a lot of for teachers who would like to teach at the rural area. There is a huge problem of teacher shortages. So this issue of reimagining teacher education, especially teacher preparation, that we try to offer different programs that can coexist together, it is one of the issues how to think differently about the teacher education. Which is closer to you, Singapore. As you know, Eileen Lau, the Dean of this Institute of National Education, she showed us in her paper how educators, they expanded the instructional priorities from the evergreen focus on developing practical knowledge to include a focus on dispositions and the wellness of prospective teachers. And Eileen Lau, she showed us that not only the focus in teacher education on knowledge is important, but the way in which we try to help the prospective teachers to feel mentally healthy, to have, this perception of high wellness is important for the future. The other paper that I mentioned so far, which was written by Maria Flores and Cheryl Craig from United States, this paper looked especially as the challenges of teaching profession, and they used their own countries' examples, Portugal and United States, and they focus on the issue of teacher shortages. Another paper that we have in this special issue comes from Ireland. Noel Purdy, with the colleagues, he discussed the current performativity-dominated approach to teacher education in Europe. And as you can assume, he criticized this approach to teacher education. He said that effectiveness is not the only issue that we should focus on. And really is important for teacher education to focus on, as I mentioned, on the values and to put the values in the center of teacher education. And he named some of the values like promotion of inclusion, equity, social values, social justice. So he said that it's not enough to focus on this effectiveness, on this performativity-dominated approach to teacher education, but to focus on the values. And we should, in this way, go beyond the competency frame standards, because in Europe, we pay a lot of attention to the competencies frames, and we create some standards for prospective teachers. And what I would like to remember you, each of you, I'm sure you know that it was 1966 in Paris. There was the special intergovernmental conference on the status of teachers. And UNESCO, with the International Labour Organization, work on the recommendations regarding teaching as a profession. And they said in their recommendations that we should recognize the fundamental roles of teachers in the development of education across the world. We should emphasize the importance of the teacher contribution to the development of societies. And this conference expressed concern about ensuring that teachers enjoy the deserved status in society. So it was 1966 when the situation was observed that there is a huge issue with the teaching, with the recognition of the status of teacher, and that we need to put in the center teachers and their contribution to the society. And we see after almost 50 years, we again look at the same problem. As you know, the issue of teachers as a professional requires to look at such criteria like the teacher professional qualifications, continuous improvement of the level of skills and the reservoir of professional knowledge. If we would like to think about the teachers as a professional, and we would like to think about this high status of teachers, we need to pay attention to the ethical standards, and they should extend beyond the average requirement. Teachers, they should gather themselves in the professional organizations within their own associations. And in fact, we should also think about the limited access to the profession for individuals who don't demonstrate appropriate professional qualification and competences. And so there are some requirements to think about the teaching as a profession, to put teachers in the center of the consideration and to think about the key role of teachers. On the other hand, I mentioned that the research nowadays show us the problem of teacher shortage, and the policy, educational policy in different countries show us that instead of working on high standards to enter the profession, these policymakers, they try to lower these requirements. So it is against thinking about teaching as a profession. And the conclusion from different research reports nowadays draw our attention to the issues that I specified in this slide, like the social perception of the teaching profession, intensification of teachers' workload, gender imbalance in the profession, because we still see, especially, I don't know how is it in your country, but still at the primary school, we see the feminization of the teaching profession. Unfortunately, we see that this is the vocation in which we can observe more and more people who are aging, and we see also the lack of adequate numbers of teachers. And also we can notice some issues that are important to consider if we would like to rethink teacher education, that teachers sometimes they have the limited possibilities for their professional career development. And in the book that I publish, Quality in Teaching and Teacher Education, in part 3, we have a very interesting paper, which was written by my colleague Marco Schneck from Holland, and he showed us how nowadays European educational policy is designed to help teachers to develop for their career, because some of the teachers they can receive the highest level, and then there is no possibilities for any more promotions. And usually these teachers are around 40, 42. So it's the question about the next 20 years being in the career and the promotions. Another challenge is we notice that it is the shortage of teachers not only in teaching profession, but for example in Poland, faculties of education are now not so popular among the prospective teachers, among the students who consider their studies. So we see the shortage of students in teacher education programs, and it is not only my country problem, but for sure in Europe we have this. And what is more important, it is the selection of the prospective teachers. So do we have the requirements that help us to encourage to enter the faculties of education, the teaching, let me say, study to the most promising candidates, or the candidates that, you know, the achievements are not so high. And also another challenge connected with retaining students in these pedagogical programs. I don't know what is the situation in your country, and I really would like to, I will be happy if you can share your experience with this, if you have any difficulties in, let me say, retaining students, yes? So from the European Commission report on teachers and school heads, salaries and allowance, it was 2021-22, we learned that teaching profession is losing a significant portion of its appeal to the most promising candidates for teachers, and unfortunately disconnected with the, also let me say, with the economy. And as you remember, the beginning of our meeting today, I mentioned that nowadays in countries we see that expenditure of on education should be treated like the investment, not like the expenditures only. So let us try to go to the issue of the themes for rethinking teachers' education in challenging times. I would like to propose you to discuss at least three main themes. And first of the theme is prioritizing teacher learning, efficacy and well-being. The second one, as you see, is about centering teacher preparation on sustainability, innovation, culturally responsive transformation. And the third theme is about the cultivating teacher professionalism as a dynamic mindset, open to continuous improvement. And that is also connected, this theme, with the issue of teacher quality and quality teacher education. So let us move to these three themes, then the conclusion, and then we will have our discussion. So the theme one, these themes, they provide a valuable roadmap for navigating the, let me say, these nuances in teacher education. And when we try to design very successful responsive system to the challenges, I think that these themes can help us a lot. First of all, if we would like to place teachers at the forefront, it necessitates a holistic approach that values the teacher voices in educational debates, ensures supportive working conditions and resources, and provides opportunities for continuous professional development. So the theme about prioritizing teacher learning, efficacy and well-being, it shows us that teacher learning nowadays initially was viewed as a form of training, and what we can notice, for example, Professor Cochran-Smith and Price, also Pauline Meyer, they said that teacher education has transitioned towards a more professionalized approach, and it emphasizes reflective practice, pedagogical content knowledge, and it has emerged as a multifaceted policy challenge within modern education. So I will remember again one of the themes that might be important for you. It's about prioritizing teacher learning, efficacy, and well-being. Another theme important for rethinking teacher education in challenging times, it's about putting into the center teacher preparation, and this preparation should focus on sustainability, innovation, and culturally responsive transformation. And the lesson that was learned from the experiences of different countries, for example, in this special issue, showed us that resilience, pragmatic actions, values-led approach, all these things, they offer us valuable insights for the future of teacher education. The theme 3 that I would like to especially focus about the teacher professionalism as mindset, adaptable and open to continuous improvement. I would like to remember that we should look at the teaching as a profession, that it is a complex, dynamic profession. This profession requires not only knowledge and a set of technical skills, but also a number of competences, dispositions, attitudes that are inherent in the view of teachers as professionals. And issues of agency and innovation in preparing teachers who can help to nurture learners to thrive in a complex and uncertain future are paramount issue when we discuss teacher professionally and teacher education. And also I would like to add that if we think about this teacher education with the angle of teacher professionalism, it's important to focus on the issue of teacher quality and quality of teacher education. And I encourage you to look at the paper that was written by Marco Schneck, Björn Asband, and me. The chapter is called Quality in Teaching and Teacher Education, Key Dilemmas and Implications for Research, Policy and Practice. In our chapter, when we were thinking about the teacher professionalism, we notice that the issue of the teacher quality should be perceived through different tensions, and we identified 7 different tensions, and we showed that first of all, we need to focus on the issue of teacher quality, all teaching quality, and the concept of teacher quality, the concept of quality of teacher education sometimes can be viewed as a static, sometimes as a dynamic concept. We pose the question if the concept of quality in teaching and teacher education, is it isolated or embedded concept? Is it individual or collaborative concept? Is it narrow or rather broad? It is standardized or contextual, or is it the fixed and defined concept by someone? The question is by who, or dynamic and dialogical concept? And we show this in this feature. So 7 key dilemmas arose when we try to think about the quality of teachers and quality of teacher education. And these dilemmas are important if we try to work on the issue of teacher professionalism. And what we notice that for sure teaching quality is a contested concept with multiple actors that bring conflicting perspective and consensus to activities. The different perspective, what needs to be understood as a key element of quality, and which stakeholder group should have a say in this. In consideration of the quality in teaching and teacher education, we notice that it's essential that we acknowledge the interconnected complexities of teaching and of learning to teach, and the issue of quality and its meanings in teaching and teacher education needs to be problematized in terms of the context of teacher education reform, the context of specific features of practice at different levels, national, regional, local, even global levels. And some conclusions, my dear colleagues. So I would like to say, when we think about the teacher education for the future, when we think how to reimagine teacher education, maybe we should have the agreement that we for sure will recognize the key role of teachers in schools, and we will try as a teacher educator prepare teachers for, let me say, everyone everywhere. As we navigate the enduring dilemmas in teacher education, we must remain mindful of the challenges that are posed by emerging practice areas such as digitalization, artificial intelligence, entrepreneurship, personalized learning, environmental sustainability. Against the historical and continuing unequal distribution of resources, whether in the form of curriculum, expert instruction, quality teachers, well-equipped facilities, such that not all children everywhere has received the nurturing education they deserve. So the challenge of how to reimagine and remark teacher education is of global interest, and it impacts at every level from European policy to local contextualized practices of individual teacher education programs. And consequently, there is a need to broaden and deepen our understanding of the scope and complexities of teacher education, encompassing both its foundational principles and its pragmatic dynamic within local and national context and internationally, as both as a field of policy work and professional practice. And internationally, there is consistent and building attention to issues of equity to ensure positive life outcomes for all children, children that are spurred in many ways by, for example, UNESCO 2030 goals, but also by too many wars, growing bias and hate crimes, disparities in health and wealth, numerous adverse climate events, and global mobility as their families seek safety and security for their children. And what also we can say what is important for us when we think about preparing teachers for everyone everywhere, we can use this OECD Learning Compass 2030 that can help us to think about education. And this compass evolved learning framework that set out an aspirational vision for the future of education. And as I proposed to you, we also can use these three main themes that arose from the research of our colleagues on how to reimagine, rethinking teacher education. I will remember these themes. We have one theme, prioritizing teacher learning, efficacy and well-being, centering teacher preparation on sustainability, innovation, culturally responsive transformation, and finally, cultivating teacher professionalism as a dynamic mindset open to continuous improvement with the issue of teacher equality and quality teacher education. And please remember that if we have the time of the crisis, what we can do for sure, any crisis is the time of the insecurity, disruption. We can find the solution how to still have the good practice and to go to, let me say, the best practices, for example, of teacher education. But Michalak showed us that if we really would like to have any change in teacher education, in fact, we have to, thankfully to the crisis and to the issue of critical instability, we have to design the new orientation to teacher education, and then we will see the progress, we will see a kind of the next practices. So finally, I would like to leave you with some questions. And when we think about the teacher education, I think that it's important to have some expectations of teachers, to have to take into account the issue of how to attract teachers to the teaching profession and how to think about the teacher education. So as far as expectations of teachers are concerned, at least we can have two questions. What is expected from teachers today and to an even greater extent in the future? How are these expectations evolving considering the changing education and societal needs? As far as the issue of teacher attraction is concerned, we can pose the questions as follow. What actions are being taken to make the teaching profession appealing and to attract the best individuals? Are there initiatives in place to enhance the image of teaching and emphasize its significance? And as I said, questions connected with the teacher education, which is perceived very holistically as a continuance from the teacher preparation to teacher professional development. We can pose the question, to what extent is there a focus on the professional development of teachers? How is the teaching profession being nurtured as a true vocation with emphasis on continuous learning and growth? And the question about the investment in teacher development. What investments are being made in the development of teachers, both in terms of financial resources and support structures, and how is the return on investment in teacher development being measured and ensured to be beneficial in the present and the future? So, dear colleague, thank you so much for your patience, for your attention. I hope that this presentation help you to find the issues that are really important for you, and you have probably some questions for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Joanna. So for your information, right now we have altogether 304 participants with us online. And actually, I officially opened the questions for all participants. But for your information, we already have 4 current questions in the chat section. So I will start with Dr. Yusuf. I invite you, if you are online, Dr. Yusuf. So Dr. Yusuf, for your information, Professor, actually, not only that he posed a question, he also has attached an OECD chart about PISA. So comparison between OECD countries and Malaysia's score. So if you're online, Dr. Yusuf, perhaps you want to explain further your question? Or shall I read and then you may add more? So Dr. Yusuf asked, could you share on us how Malaysia could improve our PISA score, maybe in terms of teaching methods or systems?
My colleague, as I said, I don't know so well your system of education, and we can only improve the system of education if we know very well the context of this system. So I see on this score. So what is the main problem for your system? How do you recognize this? Because we see that reading, mathematics, science, all these areas now some crisis, yes?
Perhaps Dr. Yusuf, you might want to explain further? Or perhaps while waiting for Dr. Yusuf to explain more, I think probably that's coming from his research, probably, or current comparison. So we move on to Dr. Nur Sayeditina.
Because if I can add something,
sure.
What happened in Poland in 2001 and later, when the first PISA exam were taken, and we were really in a shock regarding our system of education, because we found that our children, let me say that the level of education is very low. And even though the children, they are 15 and more, because we know that we encourage children at the age of 15 to take part in the PISA program, we noticed that some of them, they have a huge problem with reading. It was the time of the transformation of our country, and we completely changed the system of education. And in a very short time, in a few years, as you know, Polish education the quality of education changed, and we are one of the achievers in PISA. But what we did, we focus on the PISA requirements. We noticed that there is no more way for the education that it is based only on the knowledge acquisition, that we have to reform our education and put into the center problem solving, critical thinking, creativity, innovations, all these things. So we try to redesign teacher education, and in a few years, as I mentioned, our system of education were treated like one of the exemplary system with very high achievements, because Poland was one of the best European countries. But we changed philosophy of education, first of all, not only the methods, but as I mentioned, the values for education, what is important in our education. Do we still want to maintain the values that were important for the Soviet time, like the knowledge acquisition, or do we need more critical participants of our society? And we have chosen the second way. So it took a lot of time, effort to change our system of education in this way, but we were quite happy.
Thank you. Next, we move on to another question from Dr. Nur Sayeditina. So she said, in your opinion, what are the tips do you have for educators to stay relevant with the ever-changing diversity of issues and technology in education, besides following training or constantly updating knowledge or skills?
It's a very complex question. Let me have a look. So what is my, let me say, tip also for this? So if we have the educators, let me say the teacher educators, and we would like these educators to go with the changes of the time and to be quite, let me say, flexible with the different issues like diversity, technology, and education. Nowadays, I think it's very helpful to think about the professional communities of practitioners. It can help. If we will focus only on the self-directed learning, which is important, but if we will see educators that they work individually, it will not help so much as creating networks of educators, because they can exchange their points of view, they can motivate each other, and they together they can create also the professional knowledge on. And there is the question on what? On diversity, on technology, on how to work on such issue at the school, like the different methods of teaching, instruction. So if I could suggest something for the educators, it would be to think how to work collectively instead how to work individually. Professor Andy Hargraves, once he proposed a book about the professional capital within teacher education, and he showed how much is important, as I mentioned, to create these communities, professional communities of practice. So it will be my suggestion. I don't know if I satisfied my colleague with the answer or not.
Sure. Next, we move on to the next one. I think Dr. Budin, I'm not sure his full name. How do you rate current teachers' quality?
You know, I mentioned about this concept of teacher quality. First of all, the concept is very, very broad, very complex, and there is the question: what are the measures for measuring teacher quality? What we would like to measure, in fact? Do we would like to focus on specific competencies or one of the competence, like do we would like to look at the, let me say, the level of the development of teachers' digital competences, cultural competences, social emotional competences, or all these competences, or do we need something different when we think about the teacher quality? Maybe teacher quality is about the approach of teacher to children, the way in which teachers they can support children well-being. So first of all, we need to build the foundation for designing teacher quality as a concept. Then we can focus on measuring or exploring, because there are two different approaches to research, as we know. Yes, we can have this quality approach, and we can try to explore the issue of teacher quality, be closer to the teacher work, or we can measure teacher quality.
All right, thank you. So I hope that Professor Joanna answered your question. Now, the next question is pretty long from Dr. Shakinas. Dr. Shakinas, perhaps you are here and you want to converse directly with Prof. Joanna?
It's okay if you can read the question.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Right. Now, Dr. Shakina said, thinking about changes in teacher education, especially in Malaysia, what do you think about the impact of changes happening within the system, internal system shock compared to those coming from outside, or external system shock, as you mentioned earlier in the slide? For example, political, economic stability, and curriculum policies reform that is too frequent, etc. Do you believe that changes from the inside might be or supposed to be a bigger challenge than the external, and might have a stronger effect on how teachers are trained, if not directly, indirectly? And she wrote "zekuze." Is it thank you in Polish?
Thank you, yes, dziękuję in Polish. Thank you for this very inspiring question. It is very complex question, because again, it's hard to, to answer in the one direct way, that the internal changes can be more difficult for teachers than external ones. So what I would like to say, for sure, I agree with Dr. Shakinas that we have, yes, that we have too many external changes nowadays. For example, in Poland, especially at the level of higher education, as teacher educators, as academics, it's for us very difficult to get used to different policies, because we have changes of the government, and then we have changes of the requirement that are imposed on us. And the world around is full of instability, but the world inside, for example, the academia, is also very unstable. So then there is the question how we can be resilient enough to deal with all these instabilities. So from my point of view, if teachers work together, as I mentioned, they have this sense of the belonging to the school, to the profession, and they have this strong support within their own network, these external changes might be not so much difficult for them as internal changes. I work with the school, as I mentioned, the prospective school principals, and we have sometimes different case studies which are based on the real situation. And we see that the change of the school principal from school principal who is very open, his approach or her approach is based on the dialogical way of working. The school principal who can simply manipulate with the staff can be such a shock that teachers, instead of working together, they isolate each other. And then there is the question about the culture of the school, about the power of the teacher. So I can assume that sometimes the changes inside might be so difficult for teachers to deal with, and might be even more difficult to Yes, to cope with that, the changes from outside, under the condition that the changes from outside are connected with the teacher solidarity. The teachers work together, it's easier for them to bear with the new situation. So this is my answer to the question. If you have any other questions, I will be happy to continue.
Thank you, Professor. I think Dr. Shakinas is happy with your answer. Now, I open the floor if other participants have more questions to ask. No other questions. We will now wrap up the session, I guess. Yes, Professor Joanna, are you happy with that? I think we really appreciate it's very insightful, eye-opener, and you shared with us your publications and all the current outcomes of teacher education. Not only that, very focused, but also like it covers general aspects of teacher education in general, especially related to not only that we focus on technology and digitalization. AI, for your information, is such a big thing now in Malaysia. So, but also personalized learning, human touch, and all those matters as well. So I thank you everyone for your participation in the first academic discourse of 2024, and we really appreciate you with us today, Professor Joanna, and we will hope to see you in Malaysia probably this year. This year we have another 12 months to go. Probably come with us. We are always summer and it's always warm here with a bit of raining, so we are open all seasons. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, colleagues. Thank you so much, Dr. Johannes, again for inviting me and giving me this opportunity to share my experiences in teacher education and the latest research on teacher education. And I wish you all the best in this new year, because still you have the new year 2024. Lots of success for your university, especially for your faculty. And I hope that we will have the opportunity to meet soon in person somehow. Thank you so much, colleagues.
Thank you. Bye-bye.